A while ago, I made a series of videos about this linear tracking gramophone. This is a better quality, re-edited compilation showing its development. Enjoy!
And there we are, a very simple linear tracking gramophone. Now, as my very simple linear tracking gramophone is still out on the workbench, I thought I'd just go over it a bit and explain the whys and the wherefores about it. So first of all, why linear tracking? In what way is it linear tracking? Well, essentially it's linear tracking because the sound box moves directly across the record. So most gramophones, and for that matter record players, have a pivoting tone arm, and that means that the angle of the needle to the groove on the record changes as it moves across the record, because essentially it goes in an arc rather than in a straight line. And if I just grab the sound box, I can explain that a bit better, because the way the sound box works is basically, as this needle here vibrates, it pushes this plate here called the diaphragm up and down, and causes sound or airways to be basically pushed out the hole in the back. And it works best when the groove of the record actually vibrates it directly back and forth like that. If the sound box is at an angle to the groove, it's still vibrating back and forth like that, but not all the vibration is being transferred to making this go in and out. Some of it's sort of been transferred into trying to make it go side to side like that, and it just doesn't work as well. And what's more, it does actually increase the wear on the grooves. The grooves actually wear because the sound box is sort of fighting the way that the grooves are actually turning. Because it's not actually turning in an arc, the angle of the needle to the groove stays the same as it moves across the record. Now, while we're here, I'll just talk a little bit about this sound box. Now, this is actually one of my own design, and it's based on a sort of early style of sound box. In fact, it's a bit like a H&V sort of number 4 sound box, which uses like a mica diaphragm. This is actually part of a CD case, and I've done videos basically about how to build these. So this is a CD case, bit of cardboard tubing, 3D printed back, some plastic piping. I basically replicated the same fitting on the back here that is used on real gramophones. So this will fit a real gramophone, and what's more, I've got a 3D printed part here which actually replicates the fitting off a real gramophone, so I can actually fit proper sound boxes onto my contraptions as well. So just moving along a little bit, so what else have we got? So it's actually very simple other than that. Basically it's a piece of plastic piping here. Now this is, I think it's a 55 centimetre length of plastic piping. It's 21.5mm waste piping, I think. In fact, it actually says 21.5mm there. In the UK, this is pretty standard stuff. You can get it in any hardware store. Obviously, in different countries, you'll have access to different piping, but something about that is about 3/4 of an inch or so, maybe a little bit more. And I've just found some cardboard tubes or cardboard tubing, which I've just cut. These are about 2-3 centimeters, maybe an inch or so in length, and hot glue them onto a piece of wood. And basically, it keeps it in position, but it's also free enough to slide back and forth. So as the record turns, the needle is pushed or forced in this direction here, and actually just moves the tone arm out like this. And at the other end of the tone arm, I've just got a standard 90-degree angle, also from the hardware shop, and a sort of air horn type horn. And this is one I picked up at an outside show a few years ago, and I built a little adapter. I made a little adapter here. This is 3D printed as well, but to be honest, pretty much anything there will work. Anything horn like. I mean, I've used something like a plastic bottle before. I certainly didn't need to use a 3D printed part. I could have just used tape or something. As an example of the sort of horn, this is sort of air horn type things. You get these as in kits to connect up to cars to make them play little tunes, and they're also attached to like aerosol cans as sort of hooters to be used at sports events. So if you can get hold of one of those, that's ideal. Failing that, something like a plastic bottle works quite well as well. And although I have used quite a complicated design here, it should be possible to get away with something a bit simpler. It's just that this is what I had to hand. This is my best creation so far for a sound box. So this is what I've gone with. Now, in the last couple of videos, I've used an old Ion turntable I picked up at a car boot sale for a few quid, and actually it was a very good buy because I've used it in so many videos, and it's a really convenient turntable. It does 33, 45 and 78 speeds. However, I thought it was only fair to give it a bash with a homebrew turntable as well, and it's been sort of successful, and I'll explain what I mean in a moment. Anyway, just to quickly go over what I've actually got. So this is my homebrew turntable here. I've made a couple of very minor adjustments. I've basically fitted an extra bearing. So there used to be just like one bearing in there. I'll just show you the sort of thing that's in there. I've got piles and piles and piles of these small bearings, and it used to just have one in, and now it's got two, and it's more stable, to be honest. It doesn't wobble quite so much, and I've also put on this sort of clamp arrangement in the middle here, so this clamps the record down, and that's because the turntable is only really just sort of CD size. So with the sound box on the edge of the record over here, I was having problems with the record sort of tilting off the central pin. What else have I done? So as far as the turntable itself is concerned, I've just increased the speed slightly because I was having problems with it slowing down under the weight of the sound box. Now, moving on to the actual linear tracking gramophone itself, I've added a pivot here. So basically this is now pivoted, and this thing here is just basically a holder so that it holds it up away from the record. And I've also added this arrangement at the end here, which basically allows it to slide back and forth, but doesn't allow the sound box to rotate. So it can't rotate in this sort of direction like this, or in this plane like this. This pair of plastic tubes here keep it at the same angle, and I've lubricated very slightly the bottom one as well with a little bit of oil, so that it actually does move back and forth very smoothly. One thing that has occurred to me is that due to the lever effect, when the sound box is over here, there's going to be more weight on the record, or more leverage on the record, than when the sound box is over here. So actually the speed of the record may actually vary between the outside edge and the inside edge, and that's going to particularly affect this turntable, because this turntable has only got a really quite weak 12 volt stepper motor and does suffer from speed fluctuations due to pressure. Now you may wonder why I've got a different sound box on. Previously I had on this sound box here, which is one of my own creation. Now when testing this out, initially I just slapped down the turntable as it was and used this sound box, and I just couldn't get it to work properly. The needle just kept jumping out the groove, and I was just getting the same track repeated again and again and again, or the same groove repeated again and again and again. And it's taken quite a lot of adjustment, you know, this thing on top here, the extra bearing, quite a lot of adjustment here to actually get it to work reliably. And because I did get it to work reliably with this sound box, which is a bit heavier, I've left it like that for the minute. However, I'm going to do another test. I'm going to put this sound box on and try getting this one to run as well. Not very happy. Let's try twisting the sound box around a bit more. Okay, well you can see there, I had to put my finger on there and put a bit more pressure down. So this sound box does work okay, but the whole arrangement isn't heavy enough to actually sufficiently push the tone arm. So basically the needle jumps out the groove more easily than the pressure from the groove pushes the tone arm. So basically I need more weight on this if I have any hope for this homemade sound box to actually work. What I've also noticed is that during testing I've seen a fair amount of black dust on the end of the needles, which suggests to me that this is a bit of a record killer. So although it's good fun and you know, I think looks the part as a sort of interesting contraption, I also think that it's probably not something that I will use a great deal. Okay, well I've very crudely added a bit more weight on the front here, and it does seem to be rather better, so let's give that a shot. In the last video I was adding on some extra weight at the front here, front of this bit here, to try and get a bit more needle pressure here. And I added it onto the actual mount rather than onto the pipe itself or onto the sound box, so that the amount of weight that the sound box was actually pushing, or the amount of mass the sound box was pushing, or the needle was pushing from the groove of the record didn't increase. What I did say was that the weight of the sound box on the record, so the pressure on the record, was going to be more sort of out here than it was going to be sort of back here-ish. And that's due to the fact that this is sort of pivoted here. So the sort of the effect of the lever would be that the weight of the sound box would have more of an effect out here than it would do back here. So what I thought would be good to try would be to actually measure that weight. So if I just move this out, so move this out to here, I discovered, quite appropriately really, bearing in mind some of my previous designs, that a Pringle box is actually just the right height to be holding my little set of scales. So if we turn those on, and we move this out as far as it will go, which is to about there, and then remove this support here, that's showing about 41 grams. In fact, it seems to have jumped up to about 60 grams. Possibly this was in the way slightly. If I then move this back very slightly, that's now showing about 57 grams, very nearly 58. That's showing 46, very nearly 47 grams. And that's showing 38 grams, nearly 39 grams. So what you can see, or what hopefully you will be able to see, is that the pressure of the needle on the record actually varies by somewhere in the region of 20 grams between out here and over here. So that's going to have an effect on how well it tracks. It's going to have an effect maybe on how loud it is. It's going to have an effect on the wear on the record. So basically, fundamentally in this design, because of the pivot that I've got here, where it is on the record and even how big the record is. So a small record, like a little 7-inch record, is going to have less effect, whereas a 12-inch record, potentially that's going to have quite significantly more effect, because it's just more tracts or more distance of groove for the needle to actually move across. Anyway, interesting as I thought that was, I also did some more experiments actually getting this to play records with limited success. It plays bits of records, but it doesn't seem to like playing whole records. So I thought what I'll do is I'm going to rebuild the sort of a weight adjustment system here. Probably going to use something like this flat panel here. Screw or glue it on there, and as you can see, actually some of the weights I've got in here at the minute are actually magnets. And I've got loads of these magnets, well, I say loads, half a dozen or so at least. And so I'm going to be able to just stick magnets on and then probably get 6 or 8 on there and actually be able to adjust the weight. And I'll probably still have some sort of attachment for this lead weight here as well. So I'm going to be able to try lots of different needle pressures and to see what works best. And I may well find that different needle pressures work better with different records. Okay, so I've rebuilt the weight adjuster. So I've just hot glued that plate on there and put 3 of those magnetic weights on. So this is a test with quite a large chunk of a broken 12-inch record. It's acoustically recorded, so it's not the loudest or clearest record, but it does sound reasonably okay on a proper gramophone. Well, as you can see, that was right at the very limits of what this machine could cope with. So basically, the holder, or the guide for the horn, is not really long enough. This bit over here is not really long enough for a record of this sort of width. And actually, this demonstration didn't even cover all of the width of the record, because I had to start it in a bit because of this big chunk missing here. It was also noticeably playing slowly. I've tweaked the electronics very slightly. I've increased the I've increased the current to the stepper motor, but it's not made any noticeable difference. I also think, based on some tests that I did just before I played this record, that there is a noticeable difference in the speed between out here and back here, which is due to the leverage of the sound box. So basically, although the actual weight is here and it doesn't move in relation to the centre, there is still a fair bit of weight actually on the sound box itself, and as that moves in, the pressure on the needle reduces and the record speeds up. And that again is a limitation of the stepper motor turntable I've got here. It's really not powerful enough for this sort of job. I really need something that can actually turn the record at the full speed, even with the sort of pressure on the edge out here. And just for the record, the pressure on the edge out there was something like 75 grams. In fact, I'm just going to do a quick test and see if I can measure that again. That's showing just about 73 grams. Well, the next test run was even worse and I managed to break it. I'm going to extend the lower pipe just so I don't get the same problem again. I've also turned down the top of the screw post and put a little cap on it so I don't scratch the record or the label when I put it onto the turntable. Now, something that I've said before is that I think as the tone arm gets closer to the centre of the record, that the speed of the record is actually increasing, and the reason being is that the pressure on the record is less here than it is out here. And I'm using a 12-inch record for this demonstration because it's got the sort of widest width here, and I'm using an unbroken one so I can go right out to the edge. So as well as the sound box coming in and actually getting closer to the pivot point, the horn, now not the rest of the sort of horn attachment, but just the horn itself, is actually moving away from the pivot. So there's a bit of a seesaw effect going on. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check the speed of this turntable and then drop the needle down and then measure it as it goes across. So we're getting about 81 or so with no load, so without the needle on the record. So let's start the record. Seventy-two point nine. $73.7. It does bounce up and down a bit. Only 71 there. $74.9. I'm trying to take the measurement at the same point on the rotation. $75.8. $74.7. $76.6. $77.8. $76.3. $78.1. $76.9. 75.3. 75. 77.5. 77. 77.8. 77.3. 78.8. We're showing 84 there. Let's give it another test. 79.9. Okay, well, I don't think that is completely conclusive, but I think there is a certain amount of evidence to suggest that the speed is increasing a little bit as it moves across the record. Now, if the turntable was actually powerful enough to drive the record properly, it wouldn't make any difference at all, because this sound box is certainly not, or this arrangement is certainly not too heavy, or even anything like the weight that the soundbox tone arm on a proper gramophone would place on the edge of a record.
So, what do you think? Leave me a comment if you liked it, or have any suggestions. If you enjoyed this video, then you might like this one too. Thanks, and see you in the next one.